Welcome to week 4 of PSHS 6240 here at George Washington University. Just a couple of quick announcements. Couple things. One, paper 1 is due now, yesterday, tonight, depending on when you're watching this. So please get that in. The one person asked for an extension has been granted it, but everyone else, I should see your paper. And then briefing. Group 1 did a pretty good job this week. It was only supposed to be 30 minutes. It ended up being an hour plus. We had a pretty good discussion about Dresden and the causes of terror, or the definitions of terrorism and what constitutes terrorism and what doesn't. If you missed it, I would recommend talking to Group 1. As they experienced, I definitely go into the Socratic method on asking why they think this. Have they thought about this? And I'll do that for each group as well, so keep that in mind. And then what I'll also just say is, as I'm taping this was this weekend, I think everyone kind of saw what happened in Memphis, Tennessee. And while we're not going to, this is more a terrorism class, I think we should just remember that you all be in positions of authority and power, whether you're going in the military, homeland security, even in the private sector, and how you lay that power has effects on other people. I highly doubt anybody here would commit that crime, but I also have to think about the structural issues that led to those officers beating the person to death in Memphis this weekend. So I just want you to, we don't moralize too much in this class, and that's good, but I just want you to keep in mind these issues that are relevant to your future career and how to, let's just say how you set up structures that can have negative effects on the people that you're supposed to serve. And I'll be all that I will cover on that. So week 3, we talked about the road to 9/11, the close versus short term, which is the big issue. And the question to ask, and hint, you'll have a question on your final on this, do we look at, when we're talking about the road to 9/11 and the political and economic and social causes that underpin 9/11, as well as the rise of ISIS, do we think of the long history or the short history? The long history is, do we go back to the start of Islam and the Shia-Sunni split in 780 AD, and then we go to the rise of Wahhabism in this 18th century? And then do we talk about colonialism, the way that documentary talked about, and how the Arab world was divided? So you can look at those long-term trends. The problem is that a lot of those trends are applicable to other parts of the world. Most of Asia was colonized. Most of Africa was colonized. And they're, very odd borders were drawn in those countries as well. And that led to cascading violence that we see today. But it didn't lead to the same Islamic terrorism, at least up into 9/11, that you saw in the documentary. So then you look at what were the short-term factors? And I should tell you, I tend to look at the short term more than the long term. I look at, I think Zakaria starts it right. I think the story starts with the 6-Day War in 1967 and how that had cascading effects on the Arab world and really retarded their political development. They were dominated by religion. They're dominated by autocrats. They're dominated by oil and monarchs that governed because of oil. And you didn't have that same pluralistic societies that you had maybe in the United States or in the Western world. I look at kind of the short term. I start the story in 1967. Others might start the story with the Russian invasion of the Soviet Union. Others might start the story in 1991 with the Gulf War. Whatever you choose, whatever you think it, just make sure you can justify that going forward. To describe, the recent terrorism phenomenon. You could also ask that about right-wing extremism, and we'll have an update about that later on. Is, you know, what has started this recent ramp up to right-wing extremism that we've seen? Many people say you got to start with Donald Trump. This is a recent phenomenon. Last 5 or 6 years, you had Donald Trump. You had the crisis on the border. You had changing demographics that we've seen in the last few years, and you're going to have right-wing groups pop up. You look at that. You could also look at the long history. You know, right-wing extremism in the United States didn't start with Donald Trump. You could look back to Oklahoma City. You could look back to the Ku Klux Klan. You could look all the way back to the Confederacy and the founding of our country, if you want to go back that far. So I ask, when you see these social phenomena, these waves of terrorism, what is the root cause? Is it the long term, or is it something more proximate? And again, I'll let you decide. So, preview 2 sections: terrorism adaptation and WMD terrorism. You have a RAND article that's 200 pages. Do not read 200 pages. Do not read 200 pages. Choose one group and then compare it to the rise of ISIS. So there's 5 groups: Shinrikyo, Jemaah Islamiyah, Hezbollah, the IRA, or the Provisional IRA, and the Earth Liberation Front. Choose one of those groups, read the beginning of it and then decide what groups you're in, and then show how they adapted, what led to their success for Hezbollah or other groups, and their failures if you choose Earth Liberation Front. What were those major factors? Why did the group adapt or fail to adapt? And go through those readings, or go through that, your group case study with that in mind. And then the second part is WMD terrorism. You have the Shinrikyo, and you have the documentary, or not the movie, Dirty War. Entertaining movie, not necessarily family friendly. So, if you're going to have little kids, make sure you don't watch it with them. And it talks about a WMD attack on London. And as you talk about the discussion, ask, why have we not? We have to ask the negative evidence. Why have we not seen Al-Qaeda conduct a WMD while Shinrikyo has? What were the factors for their success? For Shinrikyo's success and Al-Qaeda's failure. So, things to think about, again, going forward. I'll have your papers back to you by this time next week. Group 1, please upload your papers if you haven't already, and I'll get Group 1's grade, first early this week. And if there's questions or issues, please let me know.